Let's just get right to it. A sneer is one of the most common signs of contempt that a person can feel towards another person. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that and what it means in this video. I'm Dr. Seth, psychologist, and here on my YouTube channel, I share hundreds of self improvement videos with you so that you can understand yourself better, understand others better. So let's talk about a sneer. First of all, what is a sneer? All right. A sneer is a facial expression, and it usually involves something that someone does with their lips. Now, facial expressions are actually a whole field that some psychologists have specialized in. In fact, probably the most famous psychologist who has looked at facial expressions is a psychologist named Paul Ekman. And Paul Ekman has actually worked with the TSA in the United States to help train people who are screening passengers going through an airport so that they can learn to detect deception. The idea being that one's facial expressions can convey meaning, can also show emotions. Let's talk about a real life scenario so that this makes a little bit more sense to you. Have you ever been in a situation with somebody where they looked at you and they actually sneered at you? They sneered at you. Now, what is a sneer? What does it involve exactly? Now, Paul Ekman's research actually includes this. Of course, if you're going to study facial expressions, you've got to cover the sneer. It is one of the most pronounced and sort of salient facial expressions a person can come up with. It has very strong intent a lot of times. And if you're on the receiving end of a sneer, it's quite intense when you see it. So, what is this according to Paul Ekman? Well, Paul Ekman coded actual facial expressions according to what he called the facial action coding system. Now, at first, when you hear that, you're thinking facial action coding. What the heck is that? But think about it. The action your face takes, all the little parts and muscles of your face, the action that your face takes when you say something or when you do something. So that's why it's called the facial action coding system, trying to code a particular face's action. And you know what? A sneer is an action. So, and this is where Ekman's research gets so fascinating. Contempt is most often shown by facial action unit number 14. Facial action unit 14. It really sounds like that's a part of a movie trailer of some new thriller coming to a theater near you. Action unit 14. Well, that is what a sneer is. Now, how do you define a sneer? A unilateral or one-sided tightening or raising of the lip corner, the upper lip corner. Sometimes it involves a slight upper lift in one corner. All right. So I'm going to try to do it, even though I've got to tell you, this is not an expression that I show very frequently. If I'm trying to think, probably ever. I'm sure I have. Let's be honest. I'm sure we all have. But this is not something that I ever intend to convey. Here we go. This is a sneer with a raising of the lip in one corner. That's key, according to Ekman. To show contempt, it has to be asymmetrical. Okay, here we go. I have to look at myself in the camera. Now I have to try to match it in my eyes so that I can try to access what that feeling must be. Okay. And of course, usually when the individual does that, they feel angry, they feel disgust, they feel scorn. But here's what's important. What is a part of contempt? When we think about what contempt is, a type of hatred, a type of loathing. Well, contempt also includes a sense of superiority, that the person you feel contempt for, that you feel that they are beneath you. They are beneath you. You are above them. They are not worth your time. You are in disbelief at who they are or what they are. You render them in that moment of a sneer an object, as if to say, you disgust me. You disgust me. You're beneath me. The question for you, have you ever been on the receiving end? Can you think in your life of all the people that you've known, family, friends, romantic partners, people you've worked with? Maybe it could be strangers. Has anyone ever done that to you? Has anyone ever shown contempt with you in that way? A sneer, and sometimes it's just in a moment. It doesn't necessarily mean that always that person feels hatred for you or feels contempt for you, that that person always feels above you. Well, a lot of times when the personality who does a sneer with someone who feels that moment of contempt, what makes them feel contempt is something the other person has said or done. Now, think about it this way: who thinks about themselves as being above others, or who thinks about themselves as being superior to anyone else in a relationship? Most people don't think that way and shouldn't think that way. But I can share as a psychologist, a lot of times when people will sneer, when people can have just moments, just a fleeting moment where they feel that contempt for someone, when they feel that, a lot of times it's because of something the other person said or did in that moment. In that moment, they can feel momentary contempt. And a lot of times it's because the other person is saying or doing something they don't like. The other person is not complying or obeying with what they want. They don't like it. So they try to show contempt and sneer to get the other person in line, to make them feel like, I don't like what you're doing, and I might just cast you off if you don't change your behavior. Contempt. It's a very negative feeling to be on the receiving end of in a relationship. If you're in a relationship with someone who sneers at you, who shows you that facial expression, it's something to really think about and to talk about. Now, you can try to talk to somebody who does this to you, especially if it's someone in a close personal relationship, and say, listen, I've got to tell you, I saw that expression that you gave me, and it really upset me. It was concerning to see the sneer. I felt the contempt. But here's the question, and I feel like people who watch these kinds of videos and want to gain insight are smart people, have good instincts. You can probably guess, if you try to bring up this issue that someone sneered at you, if you tried to bring up and expose them about the fact that they sneered at you and what it means, what do you think they're going to say? Do you think most people who do this kind of behavior are going to want to talk about it and be really open to having a two-way dialogue about it in a really adult way? Probably not. A lot of times what will happen is one of two different things. One, they'll just say they don't know what you're talking about. They didn't realize it and it didn't mean anything. And the other is they're not going to like it. They're not going to like it. They're going to perceive this as you challenging them, you annoying them, you bothering them. And if that happens, and if you get that reaction, that's another reaction that you need to think more about. Talk about this issue with a friend, run it by a family member. If you're on the receiving end where you feel like in these moments, somebody shows something that feels so uncaring to you, unloving to you, and really kind of unsettles you in a way, think about it. Sometimes it really does mean something. I hope this video has been helpful. Check out my other videos on my channel, Dr. Seth Psychologist.